The National Archives podcast series. Focus on Nigeria. Presented by James Cronan, Diplomatic and Colonial Records Specialist at the National Archives.
2010 marks the 50th anniversary of the independence of Nigeria, so the publication of photographs from the Colonial Office Africa collection is extremely timely. There are 33 volumes in CO 1069 devoted to Nigeria. The fact that there are so many reflects the varied history and geography of the colony, and through these photographs it is possible to trace the development of Nigeria from a network of colonies through to a united colony through to an independent state. Before 1914, Nigeria was purely a geographical expression for a series of colonies based around the river Niger. Traders and slavers had operated out of the Niger Delta from the 18th century. From 1849, British consuls responsible to the Foreign Office were appointed to the eastern part of what is now the coast of Nigeria, largely at the behest of traders in response to their calls for protection and support. On the west coast, a British consul was appointed to Lagos in 1852, and in 1861 Lagos was ceded to Britain by its king. In 1862 it became a colony with a governor and nominated executive and legislative councils. In 1885, as a result of the Berlin Conference, the Western powers divided up Africa into delineated areas of exploitation. The Niger Districts Protectorate was declared in 1885 and renamed the Oil Rivers Protectorate in 1891 due to the use of the Niger and its tributaries to transport palm oil. It had a commissioner and a consul general based at Calabar. In 1893, the protectorate was extended and renamed the Niger Coast Protectorate. Meanwhile, the Royal Niger Company was granted a charter in 1886 and gradually extended its administration into the area that was to become northern Nigeria, establishing a number of treaties with local chiefs and emirs, such as at Sokoto in 1885 and 1890. Legislative power was vested in the governor and council of the company in London. In 1899, the company's charter was surrendered to the Crown, and in 1900, northern Nigeria was declared a protectorate under a high commissioner in whom legislative power was vested. In 1900, the southern portion of the territories of the Royal Niger Company united with the Niger Coast Protectorate to form the Protectorate of Southern Nigeria. And finally, the colony and protectorate of Nigeria was formed in 1914 by the amalgamation of those northern and southern colonies. 46 years later, Nigeria became an independent state in the Commonwealth on the 1st of October 1960 and a federal republic on the 1st of October 1963. Nigeria is situated on the west coast of Africa, on the shores of the Gulf of Guinea. It has a varying landscape, from swamps in the south to tropical forests to flat mineral-rich plateau to the sandy north. Nigeria is 640 miles long north to south and 690 miles wide east to west, encompassing an area of around 322,000 square miles, 4 times the size of Great Britain. Censuses, though not entirely reliable, show that during colonial times the population of Nigeria in 1931 stood at 19.5 million, comprising 11.5 million in the north, over 4 million in the east, 3.75 million in the west, and 126,000 in Lagos, and this figure had risen to 31.6 million in 1952-3, more than the populations of Canada, Australia and New Zealand combined. The problem in 1914 facing the governor of Nigeria, Sir Frederick Lugard, was how to administer a vast colony with differing peoples and cultures over a variety of landscapes and climates, with a civil service comprising around 4,000 whites. Lugard was predominantly a military man, rather than a diplomat. After graduating from Sandhurst, he joined the Royal Niger Company in 1894 and headed up the West Africa Frontier Force in 1897. He was High Commissioner for Northern Nigeria from 1900 to 1906, Governor of Northern and Southern Nigeria from 1912 to 1913, and was tasked with Governor General of Nigeria from its inception in 1914 through to 1919. The legacy left by the Royal Niger Company in the north of Nigeria was one of effective control over trade routes but little involvement with the local emirs in the caliphates, for whom the company was a presence rather than an occupying force. Lugard was tasked with obtaining recognition for the British Protectorate by the local emirs, and achieved this partly through diplomatic measures, but where these were unsuccessful, armed force was used to obtain this recognition, and these conquests were given the blander term pacification by Lugard and by the Colonial Office. Lugard embarked upon successful campaigns against the Emir of Kano and the Sultan of Sokoto, and where there were uprisings, these were brutally put down by Lugard's troops. One volume of photographs, volume 58, is made up of images showing the 1903 campaigns in northern Nigeria. One poignant image is of a fallen archer at Sokoto, taken on the 15th of March 1903. Lugard fostered indirect rule through native authorities. Defeated emirs were confirmed in office, and native chiefs organised in village and district councils as part of the administrative structure of the region. Volume 59 contains an image of the Emir of Katsina and chiefs of Waziri and Mazigan, together with district headmen attending the Katsina Agricultural Show in 1911. Nigeria was divided into three regions: northern, western and eastern, each with a lieutenant governor. In turn, these regions were divided into districts with a district commissioner and district officers. Although legislation was made by the governor and legislative council at Lagos, who passed laws approved by the Colonial Office and by the British monarch, the district officers were responsible for resolving boundary disputes and for assisting villages and village councils in matters such as local housing, health, irrigation and transport. The key to effective management of such a vast colony was transport and communication. The Lagos Railway was constructed between 1895 and 1911, and the vast Barrow-Kano Railway, built from 1891 to 1911, united West Nigeria with Kano in the far north. Better use of Nigeria's resources and increasing productivity was also heavily dependent on the development of transport and creating and extending roads and railways. These measures, and others such as harbour dredging, opened up Nigeria to economic development. One of the policies fostered and maintained by administrators such as Lugard was that plantations should be owned by peasant farmers, not by Europeans. The government encouraged farmers by distributing plants and seeds and promising to buy the produce or arrange for its purchase and offering incentive schemes and bonuses for productivity. Cocoa was introduced into Nigeria in the mid-19th century. By 1900, 70 tons of cocoa were exported from Lagos, compared to just over 1 ton in 1886. In the period 1930 to 34, 53,000 tons of cocoa were exported, and by 1940 to 44, 102,000 tons exported. Volume 61 contains an image of a train starting and taking cocoa beans to the curing shed at Bota. Another of Nigeria's key exports is palm oil and palm kernels. Palm oil, extracted from the fruit of the oil palm tree, is used extensively for cooking. Kernels create a richer oil when crushed, and the remaining husk and pulp can be turned into cakes and food for livestock. Trees can also be tapped for palm wine and fronds used for building material. According to Blue Books of Statistics, in 1938, 312,000 tons of palm kernels were exported, bringing in £2,168,000, and 110,000 tons of palm oil, bringing in £981,000. Rubber trees go wild in Nigeria. Up to 1900, the tapping of rubber was on a very small scale. But from 1950s, increasing use of rubber for tyres and by the electrical industry led to a prolific tapping of the wild plantations existing in Nigeria. The 1949 Blue Books of Statistics show that 6,858 tons of rubber were exported at a value of £591,000. And by 1960 this had risen to 52,229 tons, bringing in over £14 million. Small holdings of wild trees gave way to larger plantations owned by conglomerates such as the United Africa Company, or private companies such as the Dunlop Plantation at Calabar. Under government initiative, a rubber improvement campaign was also initiated to ensure the continuing viability of the industry. Cotton had been produced on a local scale for centuries before colonisation. Around the turn of the century, the British Cotton Growing Association fostered the growing of cotton on a larger scale. Cotton seed was distributed to farmers, and rewards and incentive schemes for productivity were established. from the Blue Books of Statistics, we learn that the productivity rose from 132 tonnes around 1900 to 36,000 tonnes by 1959. An image from volume 70 shows a mound of cottonseed at Ibadan, with a man standing beside it for scale. Grown principally in the northern district, groundnuts or peanuts also provided a key export for Nigeria. In 1938, 180,000 tonnes of groundnuts were exported at a value of over £1,305,000. An image from volume 85 shows a groundnut farmer from Sokoto with some of his crop. As independence became more likely in the 1950s, moves to Africanize the Nigerian civil service were put more firmly into place with the establishment of further universities, technical colleges and medical colleges. In 1948, the Foote Commission, headed by Sir Hugh Foote, was appointed by government to make recommendations about the recruitment and training for posts in the government services of Nigeria, with specific reference to scholarships and training schemes. So followed the Africanization or Nigerianization of the civil service. The concluding image is a picture of Harold Macmillan's tour of Africa in January 1960. The photograph shows Macmillan at Lagos Airport, greeted by the Nigerian Federal Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. The tour took in Nigeria, Ghana, Rhodesia and Nyasaland and the Union of South Africa. Macmillan, replying to the Prime Minister's speech at the airport, said, "This is a visit on which I hope to see and hear as much as possible, and it is a special honour to be with you at the beginning of this historic year, Nigeria's Year of Destiny." He went on to say, "I hope that you will see this visit, the first by a United Kingdom Prime Minister in office, as further proof of our friendship and as a symbol of the sincere and deep interest with which the whole British people take in your hopes and aspirations." In his speech inviting Macmillan to address Parliament, Sir Abubakar said that it was the best of good fortune that brought the British Prime Minister to Nigeria now, because he would be able to recount to his colleagues the overwhelming desire which he must now sense in this House for Nigeria to fulfil her destiny. At the end of the tour, in South Africa, on the 3rd of February, Macmillan made his famous remark, "The wind of change is blowing through this continent, and whether we like it or not, this growth of national consciousness is a political fact. We must all accept it as a fact, and our national policies must take account of it." While aimed at the policy of apartheid in South Africa, the words also have an impact in light of the changes going on elsewhere in Africa. Ghana had achieved its independence in 1957 and became a republic in August of 1960. Nigeria achieved its independence on the 1st of October 1960, setting off a chain reaction across sub-Saharan Africa.
This podcast was recorded on the 25th of January 2011 at the National Archives in Kew. Copyright the National Archives, all rights reserved.